What's good, YouTube? It's your boy D-Rib. Hey, today we're gonna see why 2022 was one of the craziest years in wrestling history. First time across channel, but please subscribe. I'm almost at 3,000 subscribers, and I was hoping to hit it before New Year's. So without you, I can't do that. So please just take the time real quick, scroll down, click that subscribe button, because I got a lot of videos that you would be very interested in. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I enjoyed this video. Grab your popcorn, because we about to get this thing going, bruh. And also like this video if you like this kind of content. Let's go.
Drake dropping the Uts to even expose the controversies, the epic moments, and everything else. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Pav, and it's time to take a look back at the year 2022 in professional wrestling and just how insane it was. Let's get straight into it. We begin in January because, of course, the very first day of the new year set the tone for just how fucked the year was gonna be. On January 1st, the WWE held a pay-per-view titled Day.
They were supposed to have this event this upcoming year, and I had tickets. I was gonna go. But guess what? They canceled it. They canceled it. I had tickets. They canceled it and rescheduled it, and it's not a premium live event anymore. But however, I still do have tickets to go because they rescheduled it. So if y'all happen to be there, it's not gonna be called day one. It's still gonna be a day one. They called it a holiday. What do they call it? They called it a. What they call it? They called it a holiday super show. Is what they called it. But we're gonna see how it's actually gonna be. I'm gonna be there. So if you're interested and going, or if you want to meet your boy, you see your boy, holla at me. Just holla at me, because I'm gonna be there.
Day one, and instead of everything going on as planned, the main event of Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the title was canceled the day of due to Roman Reigns getting COVID. And instead of just moving that match to the Rumble and pretending like nothing happened, the entire road to WrestleMania was flipped turned upside down like an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Brock Lesnar was added to the Raw title match that had absolutely nothing to do with
it was a triple threat.
There was no correlation whatsoever, and they turned the Fatal 4-Way into the 5-Way and made it the main event of the show. And of course, Brock Lesnar just pulled up, clapped everyone in his way, Raw, SmackDown, it didn't matter. He casually became the WWE champion like it was nothing. And what a change of plans for the very first show of the year. The original plan for the show was for Seth Rollins to walk out as the Raw champion and win that Fatal 4-Way, and Brock Lesnar was supposed to beat Roman Reigns and end the 500-day reign to set up the WrestleMania match. But
so if Roman didn't get, sick, he wouldn't be the current champ. The more you know.
Nah. This was 2022. The precedent was set on the very first day that from here on out, it didn't matter what the plan was because nothing was going to go according to plan this year. And day one wasn't the only batshit crazy pay-per-view in January. No. How could we ever forget the lovely Royal Rumble? The night where 28 days after Lesnar won the title, he ended up losing it. And then the same night ended up winning the Royal Rumble to set up Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania again.
Nah. That's cheating though. How you lose the title and then you enter the Royal Rumble? That's not fair. They shouldn't have did that. That's not fair. I forgot all about that.
But the thing was, Brock winning wasn't really the issue because we all know that was happening whether we liked it or not. The issue was though, the entire Royal Rumble match absolutely sucked. The 22 Rumble ended up being the worst Royal Rumble in a very long time.
I didn't think it was that bad.
Rumble that was a definition of boring, and ladies and gentlemen, this was a Rumble that was so bad. This Rumble was so bad that the man who produced it was quietly let go. And you would assume it's probably just some random bozo, right, who got fired. Like, who could it possibly be? Nah, the boss fired his son, Shane McMahon, because the Rumble was that bad. And yo, I'm gonna be honest, I totally get it. Shane McMahon was shameless on this night. Not only did he produce a Rumble match that absolutely sucked, the man put himself to be number 28 in the match. Yes, the 52-year-old self-proclaimed MMA god who was sweating like a teenager whose mom was going through a safari history ended up being in the final 3 of the Royal Rumble. What the fuck? Do you know how bad someone has to mess up for their own dad to fire them?
Yeah,
His reviews in January in the WWE were not it. But as we proceed, one of the biggest stories of the year, the first true huge bomb of the year, also began in January.
Was it a CM Punk signing? Come on, man.
At AEW, we found out that there was a contract dispute between Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes, and this was a strange time, which included Cody Rhodes pulling up to an episode of Dynamite and cutting one of the weirdest promos of his life. A promo someone described as, "That was the greatest promo I barely understood." And by using metaphors and big words, basically Cody told the world how AEW wasn't the place for him anymore. The place that he helped build wasn't for him anymore. He then goes on to have a 5-star match the next week like it was nothing, and then just vanishes from AEW. The man who dreamt, slept, and bled AEW was gone. And of course, the internet just went mental as reports about Cody Rhodes was officially leaving AEW came out.
I did a video on why Cody left AEW. If you're interested, I did a video on that, so it's somewhere on my channel. Just search it.
And this wasn't a storyline, all hell broke loose online. It was something that sounded so crazy and just did not seem real. Even I myself couldn't comprehend the thought of Cody Rhodes leaving the place that he helped build, the place he was an EVP at, and the thing was nobody had any idea of what was happening. And as the rumors got stronger and stronger, it came out that this man right here, who it seemed like his main mission in life was to be anti-WWE, might go back to the WWE. And once that happened, the world was just in a frenzy.
Yeah, that didn't
Every
make
week
no
it
sense.
became an event on Monday to watch Raw just to see if Cody was coming back. We were seated every week in front of our TV like how Evolution was seated at that one NBA game back in the day. We were hoping that this was the week that Cody's music would hit and the rumors were true. And every week the best part was the WWE was teasing it as well. Even though at one point it was almost confirmed, it was one of those things that we just had to see to believe it.
I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't really watching that much back then. I mean, I've been watching WWE my whole life. But I'm saying, like, I wasn't watching consistently like I am now. Since Triple H took over, I've been watching every single week. Then I was not watching every week. I was watching maybe a little bit of Raw, and then whatever the main event, I mean, not the main event, a little bit of Raw, and then whatever the pay-per-view was for the month. That's all I was watching. I wasn't watching SmackDown at all. I wasn't doing none of that before Triple H took over because it just got so boring. It was so boring. I wasn't even watching it. Like, I was still into it. Like I said, I was still watching the pay-per-views. That was really mainly the only thing I was really watching. Wasn't paying attention to SmackDown at all. Barely turned on Raw. But now I've been locked in every single week. So that's a big up. I mean,
it was the one-word turn that just seemed too good to be true until it happened.
Wrestling has more than one royal family.
And not on a Raw, not on a SmackDown, not on Saturday Morning Slam, but the man came back at WrestleMania. On the grandest stage of them all, Homelander was finally back home. In front of 77,000 fans, Cody Rhodes was back in the WWE. And this was the very first moment where it hit us. The simulation was glitched. The fact that this man left as Stardust, left as a nobody, left as someone that everyone considered wasted potential, came back in front of 77,000 people going absolutely nuts and just had a banger with Seth Rollins and came off as the biggest star in the company. First night back, and just like that, an iconic wrestler.
if you've been watching me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Look in the crowd. Who do y'all see? Green shirt. The green shirt guy. That's what I'm gonna call him.
WrestleMania moment forever, and 2022 will forever go down as the year Cody Rhodes came back to the WWE. And the most wild part was, it wasn't even the only unbelievable return that night. Back in February, rumors and reports came out that Stone Cold Steve Austin was coming back at WrestleMania.
This man put on
and just
WWE
like the Cody
2K.
rumors, it did not seem real. Reports of a 57-year-old Stone Cold Steve Austin with a surgically repaired neck after being out of the ring for 19 years, after declining countless matches over the years, finally wrestling a match in 2022. This shit sounded like it was straight out of Reddit fantasy booking. But as the weeks went on, we saw Austin training, and the teases kept getting stronger and stronger, and eventually his appearance even got confirmed. But still, the idea of Austin actually wrestling, it didn't seem real. And the thing was, most people like myself, we were kind of conflicted because we didn't want to see a broken down Austin ruin his legacy. We didn't want to see Austin go out like Undertaker. Thank God he's already bald, because imagine if he had hair and he pulled up and did what Shawn Michaels did in Saudi Arabia. We didn't want to see Austin ruin that last legendary match he had back in 03. We didn't want to see Austin get hurt. We didn't want to see Austin flop. We didn't want to see Austin not be Austin. So we just thought he was probably going to pull up at WrestleMania like every other year, drink some.
Oh my gosh.
Nah, this motherfucker pulled up to WrestleMania and at 57 years old was taking suplexes on the concrete, and the madman actually had a match. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the man who many such as myself thought would never ever unretire for a match ever again, actually had a match in 2022. I thought it was more likely that a broken back Hulk Hogan would come back and try to bullshit his way back in the ring, dude, and go over, brother. But nah, Austin wrestled one more time in one of the most fun and feel-good moments ever. The fact that a 57-year-old legend like Austin came back and did what he did after 19 years off, and the fact that it wasn't depressing. What a moment, man.
Yeah.
In one night at WrestleMania, we saw two things we never ever thought we would see: an AEW EVP wrestling at Mania, and Austin wrestling again. Overall, the first few months in the World Wrestling Federation were all over the place, but it all worked out. Triple H officially retired and ended his career due to health issues. Scott Hall passed away. Big E sadly broke his neck live on television and was left almost paralyzed, and we're still hoping he gets back to 100%. Lesnar caught a body in Saudi Arabia, and Roman Reigns became double champ at WrestleMania. As you can see, it was just a wild time in the World Wrestling Federation, but that was just the beginning, because the rest of the year just got 10 times more nuts. But meanwhile, in AEW, 2022 was a year where the company finally felt the heat. AEW started off the year very strong. The CM Punk experiment was going awesome. The man was trying. He was the guy over at AEW. It was the best signing the company had ever made. Hangman Page was the champion. All the fans loved him, and the company overall was just hot. But as the months went by, the drama that would define AEW this year just slowly picked up, and it can all be traced back to when MJF, just weeks after having a true
great match, by the way, great match,
wrestling classic against CM Punk, ended up doing an interview with Ariel Helwani, and nothing was the same after this. MJF in that interview mentioned how he loved what the WWE was doing and how his contract was coming up in 2024 and he would definitely explore his options. Bombs were being dropped, and we knew that if anyone at AEW was allowed to go out and drop bombs on interviews, it was MJF. The issue was, though, Tony Khan never authorized this interview. And this is where the beef between MJF and Tony Khan exploded and became public, all because of this interview. This was where the world learned that MJF wanted to get paid, and everyone knew his contract was going to expire in 2024, but this is where we learned that the man wanted to get paid now. He didn't want to sign an extension, he didn't want to wait for the next contract, he wanted to get money now for the rest of his current contract. And after this, it just kept getting out of hand and eventually exploded at AEW Double or Nothing. After tweets such as this one, after reports that MJF will strongly consider WWE if he didn't get paid now, the day before AEW Double or Nothing live from Las Vegas, MJF no-shows a meet and greet. There are hundreds of fans.
I just watched the interview yesterday. It was similar to this little podcast thing. He was talking to somebody and he was talking about how he only cared about the money, and he says if WWE ever offers him more money than AEW, he's leaving. He said he only cares about the money. He doesn't care about anything else. He said he's only doing it for money. He said he hates wrestling. He said he hates wrestling. He hates watching it. He hates all of that. He said he only is doing it for money. So, I mean, hey, I respect it. I mean,
fans who paid hundreds of dollars to see him, and they're all left disappointed as MJF does not show up. And next thing you know, there are reports coming out every 15 minutes, reports that MJF might not show up to the pay-per-view tomorrow, and apparently that a flight was booked for MJF to go back home. And this was the same day of the show, just hours before the show was gonna go live on pay-per-view. Nobody knew if one of the biggest matches on the show was even gonna take place due to the fact that MJF possibly walked out. And the crazy part was, all this happened just a few weeks after, over on the WWE side, Sasha Banks and Naomi walked out of the company for real. Was MJF really walking out on AEW? But it all ends with MJF just an hour or so before the show began, coming back and having the match. It ended up being the opening show of the match, and he walked out as the biggest villain in wrestling. He got his ass beat by Wardlow, and just a few days later, cut the biggest promo of his career. After all that drama, after all that controversy, he pulled up to Dynamite and did the promo that
most
shook
savage
the
promo
industry.
ever.
The
This is up
promo
there
where
with
he
CM
called
Punk.
out Tony Khan and begged him to fire him live on TV. And of course, as everyone remembers, then goes even as far as saying,
"You fucking mark!"
and just like that, just like Cody Rhodes,
On live
MJF
TV.
vanished
Crazy.
from AEW. Even though after the promo, it was very clear that Tony Khan and MJF's beef was now a part of a storyline, it was still a pretty major situation backstage. And that's what most AEW fans were concerned about back then. But as time went on, as the year went on, it became clear that Khan versus MJF wasn't the major beef backstage in AEW. The whole time it was something else. We just had no idea. And a lot of it reached a new level when CM Punk on that very night at Double or Nothing beat Hangman Page to become world champion of AEW. Back in May at Double or Nothing, when CM Punk became the world champion, it was seen as a landmark night not just for CM Punk, but for AEW as a whole.
Why
It
is
was
the
the
referee holding
legendary
his head?
return that finally culminated in championship gold. It was finally AEW's new face of the company. Their biggest signing, their biggest star, was finally at the top of the mountain. It was the first ever $1 million gate in AEW history. It was no doubt a smashing success, and yes, without a doubt, it was one of the biggest nights of CM Punk's career. But the crazy part is, that night can also be seen as the start of the fall of CM Punk. As the halfway point of 2022 was here, and as insane as the year had been up to that point, nothing will ever top the insanity of June. No doubt the wildest month of me being a wrestling fan in my life. Just a few days after winning the title, the same night MJF shook the wrestling industry,
Yeah, her, right?
CM Punk breaks his foot,
Yep.
forcing him to miss a few months, and AEW has to set up an
That
interim
sucks, bro.
AEW champion. And he broke it doing a stage dive. The CM Punk dream was slowly becoming the CM Punk nightmare. And this just happened to be the same month that AEW was planning a collaborative pay-per-view with New Japan Pro Wrestling. The issue was, it felt like this pay-per-view
I need to have something like this with WWE, man. Kind of like, you know, One Night Stand with ECW back in 06. If they had something like that when WWE comes to AEW, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, dude. The roof would blow off of the building. AEW fans will be eating WWE alive. But it would be very entertaining. Very entertaining. It would be really good. They need to do it. I know they kind of had a discussion about it, but they need to do it. They need to do it. It has to be in a giant arena similar to WrestleMania, though. It has to be something like that, bro.
was cursed, because once it was announced, every single week leading up to the pay-per-view, it felt like a new wrestler on the AEW roster got injured. But speaking of injuries, right, when you think of injuries in the wrestling world in 2012, there is one that defined the year. There's
It's a tough
one
guy.
that was the holy grail. And ladies and gentlemen, you guys already know, June was the month that Cody Rhodes pulls up to the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, walks into the Hell in a Cell against Seth Rollins, takes his jacket off, and every single wrestling
That's a
fan
tough
across
guy.
the world had their jaw on the floor. Cody Rhodes, looking like a zombie from Black Ops 1, then proceeds to go out there and have a 5-star classic with a torn pec.
I wouldn't have
This
been
was
able to
no
do
doubt
it.
one of the most gruesome things we have ever seen in a WWE ring. This man was in no shape to wrestle, but for some reason, I don't know what they put in him, I don't know what kind of drugs he was on, but for 30 minutes he went out there and the entire wrestling world was captivated in a way they hadn't been for a long time. Homelander
They had to give him a lot of adrenaline, bro. Because after that adrenaline was gone, I know he was hurting. I know he was hurting, bro. I know they gave him a lot of, probably some painkillers, you know, and adrenaline. And I know his adrenaline was through the roof. And I'm telling you, as soon as that was over, I know he was hurting bad. bad.
Proceeds to drop a classic. He ruins his pec even further, and
He
as a
even said
result
they gave
ends
him a whole
up being
bunch of
out
shots.
for the rest of the year. But yo, it is hard to find anyone who thinks it wasn't worth it. As big as his WrestleMania return was, in my eyes, this was just as big and this was just as iconic, because Cody Rhodes, in my eyes, became a legend on this night.
Yeah, that's legendary, man. That would be remembered forever.
Over at AEW though, they did somehow proceed and have the actual Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Despite all the injuries, they were able to pull it off. And to make up for it, to make up for Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, they just sent out a 63-year-old Sting out there, and he started wilding out, doing sentons like a crackhead and all this flippy shit. 2022 was the year that Sting just said YOLO. Forbidden Door turned out to be an amazing show, one of the best pay-per-views of the year, no doubt. But guys, Sting wasn't the only senior citizen that was wildin' in 2022.
Jericho?
Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, it needs no introduction. I don't even need to explain it to you. 2022 was the year Vince McMahon finally got clapped.
Oh,
Okay, we'll still send a code 3.
yeah? Alright, we can skip all that. We ain't here for
Really
that.
was the Teflon
I ain't getting
Don
copyrights from
finally
Bad
got
Boys.
hit. It was the day that the wrestling world stood still. After allegations of misconduct came out that looked very, very damaging, Vince still no-sold it and pulled up to Raw and SmackDown just to flex because he could, because he felt untouchable. Even though it looked like this was gonna be another bullet that Vince McMahon dodged, the 5-star wanted level finally caught up to him, and after millions of dollars in hush money, after being a tag team champion in the office with John Laurinaitis, after a bunch of women came out with some very damaging allegations, the day came where Vince McMahon was forced to step down from the WWE.
Do we even know who all of the women were? I think they said it was 3, but who? I don't remember. I don't remember if anybody ever announced who it was. I don't know.
WWE. The same man who we thought would never ever step down, the same man we thought would rather die than not be in control of the company, was officially out of the company. Out of all the crazy things that happened in 2022, all the beef,
Been in
the
much
drama,
better
the
hands
politics,
without him.
the returns, this has to be it. This takes the cake. This is the most shocking news, maybe not just in this year, maybe in wrestling history. The man himself, the Teflon Don, the man responsible for making wrestling what it is, was gone. And if that wasn't enough, for the senior citizens of wrestling wildin' in 2022, of course, we just had to have Mr. Ric Flair. Mr. almost died a few years ago. Mr. I have a pacemaker in my chest.
He
Mr.
had
I
another
should not
match.
be wrestling.
Yep.
Pulled up to Nashville, Tennessee, and at 73 years
Yep.
old, but
I reacted to
93
that,
years
but
old,
I reacted to that, but then I got a copyright strike. I didn't even react to the full match. I only reacted to like the highlights, and I got a copyright strike. So yeah, just try to be careful now, more careful with what I react to now. So that sucks, because that was a good video.
he wrestled, bled, groaned and moaned, and even faked a heart attack. And since it's Ric Flair, he definitely cried in supposedly his last wrestling match. To this day, this is still just the weirdest thing I have ever watched in my life. I can't believe that people paid money, that people streamed this, that people bought a pay-per-view just to see a 73-year-old Ric Flair do this. What the f was 2022? As the summer continued, when Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns episode 954 was announced, the wrestling world groaned like Ric Flair did in his match. At SummerSlam this year,
We
they
didn't
took
want
a
it.
match that nobody wanted to see, and they made it a must-see spectacle that had the most just cracked out visual ever. A match that nobody wanted to see ended up being a match that was filled with teases and dramas, tractors, and honestly, ladies and gentlemen, just pure straight up fuckery. No doubt a defining moment of the year, like the visual of the
Definitely
ring looking like this,
top 3
being
matches of the
sideways
year.
and Roman Reigns just slipping and following. This is gonna be something that lives on forever. This is gonna be like the next generation's ring break moment. So yeah, 2022 was the year where a wrestling match ended like this. SummerSlam also happened to feature the one-on-one debut of a special somebody named Logan Paul. After making a celebrity appearance back at WrestleMania, which was super solid, Logan Paul was back after signing a contract with the WWE. Even though he held his own at WrestleMania, when he entered the ring at SummerSlam, he arrived to a pretty dead reaction, but by the time the match was over, he had the crowd going absolutely nuts for every single thing he did. This was the year that Logan Paul proved that he is a professional wrestler through and through, and he legitimately proved that he was built for this. Who would have ever guessed? But when I think of the summer of 2022, the one man I think deserves mad respect is no doubt Jon Moxley over at AEW. When the company got destroyed by the injuries I mentioned before, Jon Moxley is the guy who stepped up, and he was so clutch for AEW. He was like prime Kobe out there. Just like during the pandemic,
Moxley has been doing his thing over there now.
Needed someone to carry the company. It was Jon Moxley. Same thing in the summer of 2022. When they needed someone to be their ace, to go out there every week and be the guy, Jon Moxley came clutch. By August of 2022, the Vince regime was out and Triple H was in the cut, and since then he has been the man running the ship over at the Federation.
I've been watching ever
and
since.
Listen, no doubt the man has some faults, no doubt it hasn't been perfect. He definitely has a weird obsession with some very mid talent, but I gotta admit, and you must admit, the product.
He only think hit, bro. What about Otis? I'm gonna keep talking about Otis. I'm tired of seeing Otis. Like, I know y'all remember the days when the whole locker room would come out on the stage, be clapping. It's at least 40, 50 people on the stage at a time. Now, whenever they do stuff like that, it'd be only like 20 people out there. Like, it seems like the roster is so small. I know they got a lot of people in NXT, but what about the main roster, man? It's like y'all need more people on the main roster, bro. It's annoying. I'm tired of seeing the same people. I'm tired of seeing Damage Control. I'm tired of seeing American Alpha or Alpha Academy, whatever one they want to go by now. I don't really care. Hit Row is hit and miss, especially after what Buddy did on Friday. He got hung on the top rope. So I mean, I don't know. I can see what he's saying though. Triple H is kind of using the same people over and over and over and over. Like, he don't even. What's good with Shinsuke? Like, where's Shinsuke? They haven't been giving Shinsuke no love. Charlotte should be returning soon. She's been teasing on her Instagram. She just teased it again today. But like, what's good, bro? Like, I know you're trying to build up. Like, you're milking the bloodline, which is fine. The bloodline is okay. They're not being used too much. They were being used too much, but they're not anymore. But it's like, Hero
has had so many things that have been revitalized in the past few months. Guys, they finally say wrestling again on the air. Yo, no wonder Vince looks like this. This man probably has a heart attack every time he turns on the broadcast. This guy's actually transforming into a goblin. But yeah, the product since then hasn't been perfect, but there is so much more cohesion and everything seems like a part of a bigger plan. And one of the best shows of the year was put on by the WWE, and this was all with Triple H at the Realm when the company went over to the UK and had their first pay-per-view over there in over 2 decades. It was Clash at the Castle, and it was the night we saw Gunther and Sheamus tear the house down for the IC title of all things, putting prestige back on the title. The women had a crazy 6-woman tag match, and it was a night where Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre finally met in the ring once again. It was one of the biggest matches of the year, one of the most hyped up matches of the year. It was Drew McIntyre in the UK,
he should have won.
Reigns
Drew
as double
won that
champion,
match.
coming in undefeated for 2 years, 730 days as champion, and it was in front of an electric crowd that had a big time, big money main event. And ladies and gentlemen, 2022 was the year Roman Reigns reached another level. Now this might be controversial because a lot of people want Roman to be a different type of champion than he is, but yo, just look at it like this. Even though he was already champion for a year plus coming into this year, this was no doubt the year that he reached another level.
Is he trying to get copyright, bro? Why is he playing his music in the background?
Roman Reigns only wrestled 15 times on television in 2022, just 15 times. But that just made it that much more epic when he did. That just made it that much more special when we did see him in the ring. He officially became an attraction this year. He officially became the true big time draw. Whether he was defending the title on SmackDown against Riddle or against Drew in the UK, when Roman Reigns—
That's another thing. Riddle Riddle's been used too much too.
Reigns was wrestling in 2022. It was an event.
I don't have a problem
It was
with Riddle,
a
but he's
big
been
deal.
used too
It
much.
was a spectacle. It was
He used like
must-watch
Ziggler or
TV,
something,
and
bro.
that can't be understated. And whether you like it or not, whether you want him to be on SmackDown every week and have a match every week, at the end of the day, this just works for Roman Reigns and everything he's trying to do, because all this just made his matches and every moment he was involved in that much more special. It made everything more special. It made his matches more intense. Like, even though you knew deep down throughout the entire year he wasn't gonna lose to Lesnar, Riddle, or Drew, or Logan Paul. Yes, Logan Paul. The moments felt so special and so big that you couldn't get help but lost in the match, because you weren't getting Roman Reigns in a match often. Roman Reigns in 2022 officially reached God mode for real. He felt like a pay-per-view fighter that only wrestled when the lights were on bright. Even though he already was, he just became an even bigger time player. And when I think of the last few months in the WWE, it is no secret for some the Roman Reigns what happened would be a classic. And who would have ever thought that 2022 would be the year that Sami Zayn finally became the most over guy on the roster? Everyone loves Sami Zayn. Everyone has always wanted this and hoped for this, but what started off as a temporary comedy act with the Bloodline slowly developed into the most must-watch segment on TV every single week.
Yeah.
Sami Zayn's breakout with the Usos and the Bloodline has been the best thing going for the WWE since it began. The ratings go up every time they come out.
Whoa, since it began. Got a little too much dip on your chip there, my boy. This ain't the best thing since the WWE began. I mean, it's been the best thing since 2020, since this, this era. It's not the best thing ever, though. Come on, bro.
The views on YouTube go crazy when they're uploaded. Social media is buzzing every single week when they interact, and they have handled the storyline perfect.
Speaking of the Bloodline, I just did a reaction on the Bloodline's top moments. I will put that video at the end of this one, so make sure I check it out.
Sami Zayn has killed it so much in the past few months that people cannot wait. People are begging for the inevitable Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns match, which no doubt, there is no doubt about it, that match is gonna tear the house down. After a crazy 9 months or so in the WWE, the later half of the year has really settled down with drama. I mean, everything after Vince McMahon retiring was always gonna pale in comparison, and their settling down includes Logan Paul wrestling in the main event of a pay-per-view. That just proves how insane this year truly has been.
I'm ready to see Bray Wyatt in the ring.
We've had some great moments as mentioned, and the news just keeps on coming and coming. I mean, hell, we just found out that the last SmackDown of the year is gonna have John Cena make his return.
Yes, sir. He's gonna team up with KO.
When he appeared for his 20th anniversary, we're gonna see John Cena back in the WWE ring. And remember how Sasha Banks left back in May? Most people thought that she would be back, maybe by SummerSlam, maybe her and Naomi would be.
What if she comes back for the Rumble? I feel like she'll get a good pop. I feel like she'll get a really good pop.
Back by War Games, maybe by, the end of the year. Well, it turns out she's gonna do something that nobody saw coming. One of the biggest female wrestling stars in North America is going to Japan. She is about to change the game like no one has ever done before in her space. But anyway, before we end things, how can we forget about All Elite Wrestling? After Cody Rhodes left, after the MJF situation exploded, somehow things in AEW exploded even more. Where do we even begin? After surviving the MJF situation, after putting on the collab show by some divine miracle, after Punk getting injured and Moxley saving the day, it all led to AEW All Out in September. When All Out went off the air, it was looked at as a huge success. CM Punk was back in the ring, won the championship, and was truly back in the company. Kenny Omega was also back and turned all the way up. And last but not least, MJF was back on TV for the first time since June, and his contract situation seemed to be all sorted out. And to close the show, they set up the match that the world wanted to see, the biggest match AEW could offer, and that was MJF versus CM Punk for the title.
Yeah, that was
the third
really
match
good.
in their trilogy.
I watched the Better Than
AEW
You
championship. It was
video
going
that
to be
was
a
made.
huge match that was going to do record business for the
did react
company.
to that, so
like
y'all
I said,
check that
All
video
Out
out
was
too.
a blockbuster smash hit, another $1 million in gate revenue. The wrestling world was buzzing. Everything was perfect, and after a tough few months filled with injuries and all this drama and contract situations, everything was back on track for AEW. Until this man turned the company upside down. After one of the most successful shows in the company's history that he ended as champion, with the boss right beside him at the post-show press conference, CM Punk turned All Friends Wrestling into a toxic Call of Duty lobby. The man was injured, battered, broken, and he was pissed off, and this guy put the entire AEW roster on blast, calling people like Hangman Page dumb, calling out the Young Bucks, calling out Kenny Omega. This man was like AIDS in the 80s and nobody was safe. This wasn't some storyline, this wasn't some angle, this was CM Punk just going off, calling MJF an idiot, this guy an idiot, that guy an idiot. Yo, you name it. If you haven't seen it, please watch this because he probably might have called you an idiot as well. CM Punk.
If I could find that, would y'all want me to react to that? Because I haven't seen that. I kind of want to watch it. Should I? Let me know in the comments. Should I react to it? I have to find one that's not posted by AEW though, because if it's posted by AEW, it's probably not going to let me watch it. But I could try. Y'all let me know.
Punk was back and he was pissed, and with his boss sitting right next to him so confused, the reporters are just there like, yo, what is going on? This man was just letting it go. He was pissed off at the Elite because there had been a lot of reports and negative things coming out about CM Punk over at AEW, and he felt that it was the Elite leaking things out to reporters and the press to the public, including how apparently CM Punk was the reason that his former friend Colt Cabana was no longer on television and got demoted, how there was an anti-CM Punk agenda in AEW and everyone was jealous of him, and how nobody wanted him there, but he was still the best that the company had to offer. This man was bringing up receipts and everything, talking about how back in the day in a promo, Hangman Page went off script and threw shots at him, and now he was just letting it all out. CM Punk felt everyone at AEW except Tony Khan basically hated him, so he went out blasting, and it ended with him saying, if anyone has a problem, come see me. As reporters were there speechless, as Tony Khan, his boss, didn't know what the hell to do, CM Punk left, and let's just say,
why does he look scared? Tony Khan looks so scared. Like I feel like they be like bullying him or something backstage, bro. I feel like they tell him this is what's gonna happen, and he's like, okay. I feel like it's like that, bro. Like look at him, bro. He looks so scared.
His boss didn't know what the hell to do. CM Punk left, and let's just say that
like
people definitely came to see him. Yo, it got real quick, and before you know it, reports were coming out that there was a fight backstage. Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, Ace Steel, CM Punk. It was a straight TDM match back there. Out of nowhere, All Out suddenly became Brawl Out. Just when wrestling in 2022 couldn't get more insane, the biggest stars in AEW had a fist fight backstage after one of their most successful shows of all time, with chairs being thrown around. Apparently dogs were being caught in crossfire, people were biting each other. Brawl Out just went down, and of course, as you can imagine, AEW had a huge problem on their hands. Their biggest stars had just tore the locker room down with a fist fight, and to this day we don't know exactly what happened. And the thing is, we won't know for a long time, with NDAs and other investigations. After this, titles were stripped, people were suspended, and this was as serious as it could be, something that nobody ever expected in AEW. AEW's mission was to be the total opposite of a typical wrestling promotion. What they never ever wanted to happen happened. Politics and drama destroyed the locker room. CM Punk was suspended, the Elite were suspended, Ace Steel was fired, and everything was changed. Literally in AEW, it went from, oh hey, everything is back to normal, to what do we do now, in a span of an hour. In a 1-year span, CM Punk was signed and became the biggest draw in AEW. He was their ace, he was their face, he was their most pushed talent, he drew ratings, he sold merch, he was going to be on the cover of their damn video game. And it was clear that Tony Khan wanted this. He believed in him, and he wanted to make CM Punk the face of AEW. But whether right or wrong, CM Punk went out blasting like Tony Montana at the end of Scarface. And in a 1-year span, we saw the rise and fall of CM Punk in AEW. And hindsight being 2020, it was bound to happen. Business decision, no doubt, but from little thing enemy to a lot of people backstage, people who supported Colt Cabana, people who supported with CM Punk could have handled it better. It was just bound to happen. Everything just caught up and led to this. All Out ended in Brawl Out, and AEW Now, MJF is the face of the
just
company, and
repeating
rightfully
stuff.
so. He is the champion, and he is the man, and he is pure awesome. But AEW has lost a lot of momentum over the year. They still put on decent television and still have an amazing roster, and it should be no problem getting back to where they were 365 days ago. But things are very different than how they were 365 days ago.
Very
but
true.
somehow, some way, the WWE is ending 2022 as hot. They're selling out arenas, they're doing big numbers,
Yes,
and it's
they
something
are.
that is
They're
pretty
on
strange to
fire
see
right now.
because the company hasn't been this hot in a business perspective in a very long
They're
time.
on
And just
fire.
like AEW, the WWE is so different now compared to how it was 365 days ago. Hell, wrestling overall is just so different than it was a year ago. As you can see, 2022 was just insanity,
They're on
and there's
fire,
so
bro.
much stuff that I didn't even mention. Bray Wyatt came back, ROH
Yes.
is alive again under Tony Khan, and they're having their own pay-per-views. There is so much stuff that happened that this video, if I mentioned everything, would have been 4 hours long. This year will no doubt go down in the history books
Bro, it would have been 4 hours long because you keep repeating stuff.
as a game-changing year in wrestling. I've been a fan of wrestling for over 20 years, and this year was just different. Every week the unexpected was happening. News and headlines got so out of hand that at first we questioned everything, but by the end of the year, everything just seemed possible. The drama, the politics, the surprises, the matches,
I think it was a pretty good
everything.
year.
It was just unbelievable. Like I
For
said at the
WWE, for
beginning of the
sure.
video, 2022 was no doubt one of the craziest years in wrestling history. And if this is what's gonna bleed over to 2023, I can't even imagine how insane it's gonna get. From Cody to Austin to Vince retiring to Brawl Out to MJF to the matches, the moments, and everything, all I gotta say is, what a time it was to
Oh my
be
God.
alive. Ladies and gentlemen, I present pay-per-view of the year goes to
Pay-per-view of the
WrestleMania Night 1.
WrestleMania?
The AEW pay-per-view
I think the paper. Oh no, we gonna answer this in the chat. I think the pay-per-view of the year goes to Clash at the Castle.
The pay-per-view of the year goes to WrestleMania Night 1. The AEW pay-per-view of the year, and no doubt in my opinion, Forbidden Door. When it comes to the feud of the year, there's only one option when I think of 2022. CM Punk
And
versus MJF.
Yep.
And I
can see
pray
that one.
that we somehow get the third match in the trilogy. My personal favorite moment of the year, it's simple, man. Cody at the Hell in a Cell, need I say
trying to think of what my favorite moment of the year. I mean, my favorite moment of the year, honestly, was probably just Cody returning. I think that might have been my favorite moment of the year.
more. And just to tie things in, my favorite wrestler of the year in 2022, I never thought I would have said this last year, but it's also Cody Rhodes. And then sixth man of the year goes to Jon Moxley for stepping up off the bench when AEW needed him the most.
Yeah.
Workhorse of the year goes to Seth Rollins. Didn't matter if he was in the main event, the
Seth
opening
Rollins,
match,
yeah.
or the mid card. This man put all his effort in there and he made the best of what he was given. So
Yeah.
shout out to Seth Rollins. And lastly, for the MVP of the
It's Roman.
year, come on, it has to be Roman Reigns.
It has. It's
But
Roman.
you know what? MJF is a very, very close second. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry for the 40-minute video. I really hope you guys still
It's only because you repeating. But look, let me know how y'all feel about this video. If y'all want more videos like this, make sure y'all go ahead and please let me know down below in the comments. And also, please click the thumbs up. Check out some more of my videos. I got a lot of reactions. So please check them out. But without further ado, like the video, subscribe if you're new. It's your boy D-Riv, man. I'm out.